Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello everyone. In my latest column for ThePrint, I write about how the Chinese government used Meng Wanzhou's release to stoke nationalism and to argue that China won the conflict between the US and China over Meng's case, and China emerged as victorious after Meng Wanzhou was allowed to leave Canada after a long extradition case that had continued since 2018. This extradition trial started after the US asked Canada to detain Meng Wanzhou. The Chinese government sent a chartered flight to Vancouver to bring back Meng Wanzhou, and this fact was shared with people on Weibo and again repeated multiple times by state media. And the whole point about this sort of messaging was to tell the people that Meng was being brought back by the Chinese government to stoke nationalism among people and to let them know that this is a victory for China. A hashtag about Meng returning to the motherland was viewed by 1.5 billion people on Weibo. This whole sentiment was stoked all across Chinese state media platforms, and the release and return of Meng Wanzhou at the Shenzhen airport was viewed by almost 400 million people. The Chinese state media tried to create an impression that Meng Wanzhou had not pleaded guilty, but in reality, Meng had agreed to the deferred prosecution agreement, and that agreement says that Meng agreed to the fact that she had misled the banks, and that was part of the argument the US side had made, that Meng Wanzhou was part of a conspiracy to mislead the banking system, and that led to violations of the Iran sanctions imposed by the US. So partly Meng did acknowledge her involvement in the whole case, and her guilt was proved in the US court where the trial had continued, and the extradition case itself was being played out in the Vancouver court in British Columbia, but part of the trial had started in the US district attorney in New York. And so the trial ended when the US presented the deal to the New York court, and Meng was allowed to leave from Vancouver where she had been staying. As you may have already read, China had detained 2 Canadians in response to Meng Wanzhou's detention in Vancouver, and this is back in 2018. So there was a deal in the works where Meng would return to Canada, and the 2 Canadians detained in China would be allowed to leave and return to Canada, though both the US and Beijing deny any kind of deal. But we know from extensive reporting that Xi Jinping himself brought up the case of Meng Wanzhou with President Biden on a phone call, and this has happened over time and again. And the Chinese embassy, both in the US and Canada, had made the case for Meng's release in their personal conversations with the ambassadors. I can share with you that Meng Wanzhou's case was not progressing well in Vancouver, and there was a chance Meng would have been extradited to the US. The case was becoming weak after Meng's own involvement in the case was proven, and it was clearly visible that Meng had been part of a conspiracy to mislead the banks, and that had been proven in the court time and again. And it was becoming difficult for the Meng team to argue that Meng did not know about what the HSBC bank knew, and there was a differences in perception about what Meng knew and what the bank knew. China may have been able to bring back Meng Wanzhou from Vancouver and claimed a victory amongst its own people, but China's own image is severely damaged at this point, and I don't believe that US-China relations can return to the pre-Trump era when the Chinese foreign policy had turned severely anti-US because of the certain policies of the Trump administration. So we are likely to see a new phase where the hostilities between US and China will continue for one or the other reasons, and this particular chapter will mark a shift